So hi guys, my name is Gonçalo and welcome for our first online session for the Qlik Integration Meetup. I'm here with my friends and colleagues Richard, Piers, Ryan and our special guest Kabir. So before we actually start the agenda for today, we are just going to do a small introduction of ourselves. So we'll start first. So my name is Gonçalo Pereira. I work basically as a Qlik consultant for climate, as the technical lead here in the UK. And yeah, I'm one of the co-founders with Richard, Piers and Ryan of the Qlik Integration Meetup. And our idea is basically to have this meetup in live and also online to basically spread some information around Qlik. So, and in this case, I will ask my colleagues, Richard, to give his first introduction, and then move on to Ryan and Piers, and of course then to our guest Kabir. Richard, all yours.
Well, thanks very much. I'll keep it short and sweet. My name is Piers. I'm a Qlik consultant for about 9 years or so, working independently, and I'm a Qlik luminary. 3 years on the trot now, and also, as Gonzalo mentioned, one of the of QI meetup in London.
So it's me, I guess, or actually no, Piers, you go first and I'll go after.
My name is Piers Batchelor. I'm a product architect at Vislib. I've been working with Qlik for around 5 years or so, and really excited to have you join us, Kabir.
Thank you. Ryan?
Okay, Ryan.
Sorry. Hi. Yes. Hi. My name is Ryan Arthur. I'm also a Qlik consultant with 5 years experience. I'm currently working at HSBC on mashups using React. And yeah, I have extensive knowledge in, especially in the Qlik APIs and so on. So, yep. Over to Kabir.
Thank you. I'll keep it short and simple, like Richard. My name is Kabir Rab, and I work for a BI consulting company called Tehola. I work as a solution architect, so that means I work with a variety of different technologies. But Qlik is the primary one that I like to work with. And I'm starting from building dashboard to building mashups, building tools around maintaining server architecture. Sort of thing. I work with all sorts of different things to make Qlik work and make Qlik do what the customer wants to do, really, and provide them with the solution that they need.
Okay, cool. In that case, thank you everyone again for being here and to join us. In this case, so the agenda for today, the idea here is basically to focus on 2 projects that Kabir has been working and how he's actually integrating those projects with Qlik. So one of them is actually a very interesting topic that is about the extensions, and basically this project was created based on a really interesting presentation for our only Richard Piers. So I will ask Richard first to give a small intro of his presentation at Connection, and then of course we will pass to Kabir to explain where was actually the inspiration to create the extension. Go ahead, Richard.
All right, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who didn't come to Connections this year, weren't able to attend my session, I was asked to do a presentation, and the object was, the idea was sort of do's and don'ts. It's going to be very quick fire, do this, don't do that. It was quite interesting to look, actually. And one of the things that I said, most people resonate, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And, oh, I didn't think of that, but that makes sense. There's one sort of topic that I came out with that actually made everyone in the audience. So, that I touch you on here, touchy subject, which was, in Qlik Sense, when you're developing, as developers, do not put expressions into variables in your app. That's, I think, what a lot of people do. So they'll write an expression, they'll put it into a variable, they'll put the variable in either the expression or the master item, and that's how the variable works. It's kind of a long story, really, from Qlik view days, where people use variables to do what-if analysis and to manipulate calculations. And that's what moved on to people thinking, hang on a minute, we can use variables to use as for governance, make sure things are consistent. We could also reference two sort of variables together for like margin, costs, and that kind of thing. But it kind of makes sense. It does make sense. Now, as you move forward to Qlik Sense, this is my point. There's a lot more emphasis away from Qlik and to the user and having a little bit more control of what they're doing. So, and I always think about users being a bit of a sliding scale from the people just the first day on Qlik Sense to obviously, I'm assuming the majority of people watching this video, which I would say are power users, developers, and everyone in between. Now, when you're moving through that sort of journey, through developing and your understanding, you'll always get to a point where you want to do a little bit more, and there will become a point when you want to do an expression yourself. You want to manipulate an expression that already exists, or you want to create something new. Now, from everything that I've developed in the past, the best way to start that sort of training, that sort of development, is to look at what's already been done, read it, and adapt it to your needs rather than creating something from scratch. So therefore, if you're using variables to store your expressions, if the user then goes into edit sheet, edit expression, all they see is a variable. There's no way to really interact with that, to interact with the text and how that's created. They just have a variable. So straight away, they're at a stopping point. Now, from a Qlik Sense point of view, we don't want to put our users at stopping points. We want to empower them and give them the tools in order to keep that momentum going when it comes to data discovery. So the variable becomes a robot. So us as developers need to work around that, the challenges therein, and develop these ideas further in a way that will help the user further on. And I know there's certain tools around so that you can look inside a variable, but it's all very complicated stuff. Really, let's keep it very simple. A user clicks on the expression, clicks on edits, and they see the expression as it's written verbatim. So that's where it came from. I did a blog post as well around it on Qlik Central. It's one of the most recent ones, so please feel free to have a look at that. But that, my understanding is, from those blog posts, from the discussion on LinkedIn and on Twitter, got a real conversation going around it. And, hopefully I think people who maybe didn't think about that in the past have started thinking about that towards the future and may hopefully change how they develop Sense dashboards going forward. So that's the background. Hope that covers everything.
Yeah, no, it covers. And it was actually a very interesting topic there. And it was actually interesting to see the engagement that you actually got from the people. Actually, some of them, and saying that didn't agree, they like to use the variables yet and stuff like that. It was actually a very interesting presentation. So, but then in that case, Kabir, up to you. Where was actually the inspiration? What was the idea to create that extension? Why? What are the future plans? So, feel free.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, like I said, it was definitely a very interesting topic, and it's a topic that a lot of us tend to ignore when we are moving from Qlik View to Qlik Sense. We tend to go back to our old habits and create a lot of variables, and our app becomes a variable-driven app. And that's where the problem lies when the self-service element of Qlik Sense comes into play. And you essentially want business users to help themselves, and when they try to look into those measures and metrics and trying to figure out how they were calculated, when certain aspect of their business changes and they want to make those changes, they go in to make those changes and they realize, oh, hold on a second, that's not there. It doesn't give me the explanation. It doesn't give me how it's been built. It just gives me a variable. And then they'll have to go and dig deeper, find one variable, and then before they know is they're finding themselves in a situation where a variable is driven by another variable, which is driven by another variable. It's a never-ending circle. And it sort of challenges that we face at Tahala. When I was working on projects, we faced that similar sort of challenges. And from that conversation, I thought, okay, would it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we had some control over how we look at those variables. And one of the key things that with the Qlik Sense client that you get out of the box is there is no way of searching through variables. So say, for example, if you have a list of 50 variables, I've seen over 100 variables in an application at times. How do you find a specific one? You have to scroll through all of them to actually get to that. There's no search functionality as such. What if you decide that, you know what, I've made those changes, I've changed all my say all my master item into actually expressions now. I don't actually use any more variables. I'm certainly not bringing in my script variables into my elements anymore, and I would like to get rid of all these, 50 or 100 odd variables that I've created. And just want to clean up my application. How do we do this? You have to go and delete one by one at a time, and that would take a lot of time. It's a bit time consuming. So from there it started, and I thought, okay, maybe capabilities API would be the best place to start looking at. And that's where the idea came. Why don't we build something using capability API that would drive those behavior and makes things easier for people? I mean, I could have jumped to the engine API. The reason I didn't look into that is that means somebody will have to install another piece of software, another piece of tool. If they want to run out on Node.js, that means they have to configure all of these, they have to deploy, they'll have to take the certificate out, and so on and so forth, which will complicate the process. And I wanted to make it something very simple, very easy. And I thought if that can be doable via capability APIs, why not try? And that's when I started looking into it. And I spent a few hours and ended up building this variable editor. Obviously, there was a lot of ideas around at that time when the initial conversation took place, and I wanted to build more and more functionalities. Unfortunately, with time and with job and everything, I never really go around putting them all. Yeah. But at some point, now that we started this conversation again, hopefully that would inspire me and let me take it to the next phase. But that's where the idea came about. So I built something using the capability APIs as a mashup object. So that means they can just deploy that as or import it as a extension into their environment, and then just open that and open an app. They can have a look at a number of variables in there. They can make changes to those variables. They can search the variables to see what they contain, and they can also delete them. And while I was working on it, I thought, oh, would it be nice if I had a functionality in there that allows them to take out the script and remove all the variables from the script as well if they wish to, or at least identify where the variables are coming from in the script itself. So I enabled another option in there where they can actually download the script as a text file, so they can have a look at the script and go through it rather than opening in their app and do it on the client itself. So that's essentially where idea came from, and it just sort of went from there, and I ended up building this. Obviously, I published a variable editor on Qlik branch, so if you're interested, by all means. And also the project's on GitHub, so if you have any other wonderful ideas and if you'd like to implement them, by all means, you can make a copy of it and just submit to, and I'll roll it into one in future when I start looking into this. I can do a little demo if you prefer to. Show you what I've done so far, and I can cover exactly what I have in mind, what I would like to do if I get to work on it again in future.
Yeah, of course. But before we actually jump into the demo,
my screen, if he allows me to.
Yeah, it should. Yeah.
Okay. And you will see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so the variable editor, just launch that quickly. So I'm just looking at running it from my local machine. I've only got limited number of apps in there. When you first launch it, you just get a blank screen essentially. You have to select an app. So for example, I want to look at all my variables within an app called variable test that I've created. So if I click that one, I have loaded quite a lot of data in the app, so it might take a little bit of time to load. And I will touch on that one later on. There is an advantage of moving to Engine API from the Capability API because of the timing concept of things and delays and other things that could happen if you're loading a big app. So that's probably something that I will probably look at in future, but at this precise moment, this works and this gives us what we need. So in a first glance, you can tell number of variables that you have within the app. So I have 1,287 variables, not many, just few. Out of those, 170 variables are in the script, and 1,117 of those variables are actually at the front end. So yeah, I've done a wonderful job of creating tons of variables in there. There is some indication to tell you which variables are where. So anything that has the script icons on, you can expand on them. You can see the variable definitions. Unfortunately, at this moment, you can't really edit it because they're on the script elements, so there is no way of editing, so they're all disabled. You can also suppress all your script elements, and you can just have a look at all the front-end variables. Now, these are the variables that Capability APIs would allow you to change and modify. Essentially, these are the variables that you've created using the variable editor on your client, and these are the ones that you can either delete or make changes to. Unfortunately, with any variables that you create or declare within your script, they can only be managed at the script. You can't really delete them from the front end.
Yep.
So the best way of hiding them is just suppress them all, and that way you can only just focus on the ones that you can edit and you can change. Now, what if you want to, if you're looking for a variable, say year-to-date variable, so essentially you know the naming convention and you know that would contain some sort of date within the name. So if I look for, or if I search for at the top here, for date, and that would give me a list of all the variables that contains date within its name element. So you can see all of those that's coming in here. And from there, I can just select, say, date prior year. I would like to look at this. I can click on that one. I can have a look at that variable there. I can also have a look at any variable that was created, say, date ignore all, for example. That was created using the front end. So that means I have the edit option available, and at that point, I can click on that one. I can go to the next phase and have a look at the variable and edit it. Now,
and
there are a
this
number of
change
elements
will
that's
actually
not
change
being
the
put
front
in there.
end.
One of them is edit function, currently not in play. So it just allows you to copy and paste the content out of it, but you can't really save anything back into the app. I've not put that functionality in yet. Also, there is no way of evaluating any expression that you put in there, which hasn't been implemented. This is something that I will be looking at. So when I next start working on this, saving and deleting would come into play, as well as evaluating any expression that you put into those variables and give you the end result or outcome of the expression, tell you whether the expression is valid or false, and also what the resulted expression would look like.
Okay.
So that's something that I'll be doing in the next phase of this project, but at the moment that's not quite there. So that's about it, really. You do have an option, like I mentioned earlier on, downloading all of those variables into, say, an Excel file. A lot of the times I've seen practices where people like to have all their variables in an Excel spreadsheet, and then they have a script element that goes through the Excel spreadsheet and create them in the back end. And then that way nobody can change this variable and they're secure. If people want to carry on with that same experience, way of working, they can also do that. They can just take all of those expressions and take them out into CSV file, and they can do whatever they would like to do with them. So there's one that I've just downloaded. I can open that up. And they're there.
Okay.
That's all the expressions coming through, and you can do whatever you would like to do with those expressions, really.
Okay.
The other element that I added to this mashup was the downloading the load script. So again, it will just download it into standard TXT files, and you can just open down your favorite editor, and you can use it. to search for anything that you would like to remove, and then update your script on the app, really. That's it for this demo part, so I'll hand over to you guys again.
That's really good. Just a quick question while
Sorry, I can't hear anybody.
No? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kabir, can you hear us? Yeah. Can you hear me, Kabir?
Can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Just one quick question about the extension and the mashup you create. What were actually the main pain points, let's say, while you were building? Any issue with the APIs, difficulty, any advice even to anyone that would like to do something like that?
There are a number of challenges they will face. Well, one of them would be being able to delete all the variables and being able to display them all at one go rather than doing one at a time. So you would have to work around, and you would have to build some loops and things like this. And one other thing is we probably noticed at the beginning is if you have a very large app with a lot of data in there, and if you're trying to evaluate that app, when you are using capability API, you would have to load that up into the engine before you can get any objects out of it, and that does add on to that frustration that you have to wait till the app is loaded, and also you're consuming the resources within your server as well. So that's one of the challenges they will face when you're working with this API.
I always think that the ability to delete all the variables is essential, especially when you're doing UAT for different versions, because one of the things I used to always say in Qlik View, that when you would, before going live, you would delete all the variables, rerun the scripts, which would usually populate all the variables again, and make sure that your dashboard works. Because, you know, it's one of these little things, isn't it? For every pound I would have got for Richard, can you fix this dashboard, just to find it was an old historic variable that should have been deleted but never was, and was persistent in Qlik. That's why I did write a blog post many years ago, which did say, you know, did sort of recommend UAT testing, delete all your variables as part of the testing. I mean, that's really essential.
Yeah,
I think
this is something that would be nice to implement, and hopefully that'll be the next thing that I actually put into this mashup, where you have an option to delete a single variable or just loop through all and delete all of the front-end variable. Obviously, you can't handle the script delete and deletion using the capability API. Sorry, Ryan, I interrupted you.
So I think this would be, of course, this is an extremely useful tool, but it's more importantly for developers who are new to Qlik projects, so they can explore the variables and explore the definitions of those, where there may be, you know, a lack of documentation, for example. I think something that seems possible based on what I've seen so far is the ability to get the frequency of use of the variables in the script. I'm not sure about from the variable overview if Qlik exposes that, but that's something that could be done in the future, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, it would be nice if we can tap into the engine directly from mashup. So I've been playing around with that idea that we use Enigma.js from the capability API. There is a way to get to it. It isn't, as far as I know, it's not supported by Qlik, but you could get to it. I suppose we could always test the water and see how that pans out and how we can expose all of those Enigma.js function into mashup through this way, and what we can do with that. I think that'll be my next step, and that would elevate a lot of the issues around, you know, delays and also issues around wrappers and other things, and it also makes it a bit more clean. But I suppose I've not actually tested it to the full extent, and I would have to do that at some point, and I think that'll be the next approach for me.
Okay, but like everything is all about the time available, right? All those projects, all the work is always difficult sometimes to find some time. In that case, if no one has any more questions about the variable, one thing that is very easy for anyone that might be interested in playing, just go to Kabir blog and they can download and basically try and play. But I would like actually to jump to the next project that you've been working. That is actually a very interesting topic because again, Qlik is all about data literacy and also the APIs, visualizations, now also data integration. But let's just focus on the data literacy because it's your project now. Can you tell us a little bit about the project? How are you actually integrating with Qlik and in what way, and what is actually the main goal that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been talking about data literacy on and off for a number of years now, and I think Qlik has made it very, very much of their focus at the moment to look at data literacy and enforce that into the business mindset, and trying to encourage business to focus on data literacy and get their employers a bit more literate around data. And that's where the self-service element comes in, and that's where people becomes a bit more aware of what they're looking at, and start asking questions of the right type of questions, and try and finding the answers via their BI tools that they're using. It's great that Qlik is focusing on this. It's great that we are all focusing on it when we're in the work environment. But what we are missing out on is the fact that a generation is changing. If we look at 10 years ahead, the people who will be working in those businesses will be the people at school right now. If we are only waiting for them to learn about data literacy when they're in business, we're already too late. We should be starting this conversation when they're at school. When we are talking about them learning about maths, when they're looking at the numeracy school, we should be talking about data at the same point. It's more close to them, and it's more relevant to them than ever before. Because practically from the moment they wake up, they're probably creating data set without knowing that they're creating it. They might have a connected device in their hand. They might have telephone that they're using. They might have tablet that they're using when they're having their breakfast. They might be watching television, which is connected device again. So they're creating data without knowing that they're doing it, without being aware of that they're doing it. And the impact that has for them is quite big. And they should really be data literate to be able to know, okay, this is what our data is going there, this is what people can do with our data, this is what we can do with our data, and this is how to do them, and this is how to look at the data set. So that's where my mindset was. And I think that if you're interested about the story, you can follow the blogs that I've wrote about a couple of things. And the way it started was my eldest son, he suffers with ADHD, so he really struggles with focusing on anything. He has an attention span of 10 seconds. You give him a game, he will play that for about a minute, and then after that, he will be switching to the next game and next game, and so on and so forth. He doesn't really have attention at all to anything. But he took interest in what I was doing at home. When I was working with a number of different Qlik projects, he was interested in it. And he was actually sitting next to me to see what I was doing and asking me questions. And that got me thinking, this is a great chance for me to introduce something to him that he is interested in. And let's see where that leads to. So I was thinking, how can we do this? And then came up with an idea that I built this game when I was at university about 17, 18 years ago. It has a number of elements, things like a little bit of numeracy skills in there, or test in there. There's some memory test in there. There's also some spelling test in there. So I thought, okay, that would be the great tool for his age to be able to do those, because he should be able to do some factors, and he should be able to do some spellings, and he should be able to do some memory tests, and that's more age appropriate for him. So I faced that game, even though it was very old, to get it working to start with. When I got it to work, I loaded up for him, let him play for a bit, and he became really good at this. And I realized, okay, now that's great that he's doing this and he's creating the data. Now I should be telling him about the data, telling him, look, this is how you've played the first game, and this is how you got better over time. And perhaps he can use this to improve his next go, or maybe figure out what he needs to do for the next go. So that's where the idea came from. And then I ended up building a Qlik Sense dashboard on top of that data set. And I realized, obviously, he doesn't really understand those charts. So the explaining of what line chart is, what bar chart is, and all of those elements came into play. While I was doing this, I thought, okay, I need to make it a bit more relevant, a bit more interesting, because if I show him my bar chart, it's probably going to switch off, like he does with everything else. So I allowed him to choose some game avatar that he can associate and he would like to play with. And then I thought, okay, I'll build some extensions to build those things into it, show him all these game avatars. And this is where it started, really. And he got really interested into it. He obviously went to school and started speaking to his friends about this. Oh, my dad built this really nice game, and I've been playing it, and you can see all the results at the end of it, and I know what bar chart is, and he was telling his maths teacher. That got the conversation going at school. Some of the parents approached and asked about it. I thought, okay, well, great, that's a great idea. Why don't we try to do that for wider class, for the whole class that he's in, maybe a couple of classes, not just his class, probably look at year 5 and year 6 for a bit more understanding of this sort of things, and they should be looking at data at that point. So I started having conversation with the school and approached them and said, okay, I haven't really built anything, but this is my thought process. This is what I'm thinking. We run some type of workshop, data literacy workshop, where we make them play a game to give some fun element in there. And then at the end of it, we display them some charts and explain how chart works and how to look at them, how to look at their data, and how to read the data and how to read the chart and what the use case for them. And she was really interested. The school was really, really happy to do it. So they went ahead and said, okay, let's do it. So we started thinking, okay, I can't use the game that I've used before because kids need to play from laptop, so everybody knows access to it. So I needed to come up with a game, something that everybody can relate to, parents at home as well as the kids. And that's where I thought, well, Space Invaders. We all know Space Invaders. Even the kids probably, whenever they went bowling or somewhere like this, they've seen Space Invaders arcade somewhere along the way. So they would be familiar with it. We are all familiar with it. Maybe that's a game that we can take on and start doing something with that. So I took the Space Invader game, found some JavaScript for it. There's some wonderful gentleman that built the game itself on Java. So contacted him, got the permission to go ahead with that. Obviously, his game was just a game that you play on the browser. There is no data element to it. There is no way of saving the data. There is no way of bringing that data back into Qlik Sense. So I started looking at the code itself, start making some modification, ended up building a backend API for it so we can capture all the data into a database somewhere, and then build another REST API that you can actually have Qlik Sense loading the data from the database, and then do something, do some analysis and build some dashboard for the kids to use, really. And it has been a wonderful journey. We built all of this. We went to the school with my colleague Ross White. He was wonderful with the kids. We managed to do 2 sessions with the kids, and they absolutely loved the playing aspect of it. They started looking at the dashboard as well very quickly. There was a top sort of a league table within the game itself. We didn't really tell them where the league table was. They found it very quickly, and they start looking at the line charts in there or area chart in there. They start competing against each other, and that's even before we actually start having the conversation around what data literacy means or what data that they're generating. They sort of got there very quickly. Then we stopped them from playing the game, and we presented them with a dashboard on Qlik Sense and start asking them a variety of questions, things like, can you tell me by looking at the chart what the top scorers are? And we went through explaining why we use various different chart types, what do they do, how they work, and they were really interested. I think one of the key takeaway from this was one of the kids asked me during the workshop is, when we showed them the table chart and said, okay, this is a straight table that contains all of the information for every game that you played. And he turned around and said a question that we probably all faced at some point or another from our customers is, if we have that straight table giving us all the data, then why do we need all these other fancy charts? Why do we need a line chart? Why do we need a donut chart? Why do we even need a bar chart? Because that's giving me everything. I know. I thought that was a brilliant question. Yes, you do have the data all in one place. Can you answer the question of who has the top score without doing anything to that table? You can't. You can't, by looking at this table, can't answer top 3 questions that you may have in your head. And this is where the other chart kind of comes in that helps you to just at one glance being able to answer those questions very quickly. Obviously, it goes more deeper than this, but for the kids at their age, age 8 to 10, I didn't really want to take it too much and lose them in the translation, so I just kept it as simple as possible, and they really loved it. And believe it or not, they're still playing the game, which is surprising because I didn't expect them to carry on playing, but they're still playing the game and they're still competing, which is great outcome. Idea is to obviously take it a bit more further, do it with more schools, get some more awareness in there. Unfortunately, the time is the constraint here. Obviously, I do have my day job to. We all have our day job to manage as well, and we are just doing this to help the kids really and get them prepared for the next phase of their life.
So you are trying to create the next data scientists.
Yeah, seems like the trend now. Everybody wants to be the data scientist. Nobody wants to be the BI analyst anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And
no, that's good. If everybody wants to be a data scientist, I mean, you have to understand the data and you have to be capable of analyze the data before you become a data scientist. So I guess no harm done. More data scientists is better.
Data literacy comes first.
Exactly, that comes first. Without data literacy, there will be no data scientist. And we need to start somewhere.
That's true.
Starting after school seems like a delayed action. Really, we should be looking at a bit more holistically and start doing this a little bit more earlier stages. Let's see where that leads to. And I encourage everybody to do similar sort of projects. It doesn't have to be gaming, it doesn't have to be things like this, but if you think of a concept that would work at school, that would work with the kids, by all means, get the conversation going, get the school engagement, and try building something for the school, for the kids, and encourage them to look at data in a way that would help them in future. And that's where I'm at. I'm trying to encourage people and make data accessible, make data literacy the topic for them to actually get into. I mean, a lot of the times you'll find the kids primary school, when they're coming up to the end of and they're going into high school, they're looking at plotting some charts and they're looking into doing some of those things. And they're probably asking that question, why am I doing this? What's the use for this? Yes, I can plot X and Y, but what does it give me? A scatter chart doesn't mean anything to them till you start explaining to them the use case for them and in how in their daily lives it is very useful. And I think it is getting to that point is our aim at the moment.
No, it's actually a very good idea. So basically, and to be honest, this is actually a very interesting point because Qlik is trying to give the companies the data literacy to make all people data literacy inside of a company, to play with the data and understand and make the decisions. Of course, your project is more training the next generation. So as soon as they go actually already to the university, to their school, and before they actually reach the company and their work, they are already data literate, basically, and they already know how to work and how to understand the actual numbers they are watching. It's actually a very interesting point, and perhaps Qlik will see this video, and perhaps they can reach you and give you some help. And we have here our Qlik luminary that can also help. We have our own Qlik luminary, so at least for now, perhaps one day, we don't know, we can have more than one. No, but it's actually a very interesting point, and the thing is actually the truth that everyone and all the reports actually say that the data is actually the future, but the problem is people don't know how to read that data and the data that we are generating. And definitely, if we start training and teaching the young generations, it will be much easier for them than it is actually for us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would say is probably as a consultant, we tend to work with a number of businesses, and we should always encourage business to help the local school, local communities, especially with that sort of element. Because essentially, these are your future employers. And if you are going to employ them and find out that they are not data literate, they can't really look at your dashboard and make any sense of it, then you're spending time and money and effort to build them, build that capability within your team. But if you already invest that time if you think ahead, and if you start investing now, and if you start making people realize what data literacy is, and get them talking about this at school level, in a few years' time, you might be hiring them and giving them a job, and you don't have to spend the money to get them data literate to be able to do their job, because you've already invested that money, you've invested that time and interest and start that conversation with very little spending, and it will save you the productivity and it will actually help your business going forward.
Yeah.
But that only work as certain concept. It's not going to work for every businesses, but it will work for some businesses, especially the local and small ones.
Yeah, but we need to start somewhere, right? Or sometimes the companies need to start somewhere. So baby steps, and perhaps one day they are more involved in this case. Probably now with perhaps with the project that also Qlik is actually creating about data literacy with other organizations, perhaps it will help. But yeah, we need to wait and see. Again, if Qlik is going to see this video, perhaps they can reach you and help you. We never know. But yeah, no, two interesting points, definitely.
Would you like me to do a demo of the?
Yes, please. Yeah, no, of course.
What's been built? Let me just look that up. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen again.
Yep. Yep.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So for the school, this is sort of the landing page the kids have. When they land on the page, they have to choose an avatar. So say, for example, the Ninja is probably one of the famous ones. They type in their name and press play. And there you go. They're into the game itself. There is a scoreboard element that I touched on before. So this is something that I built to serve some data without associating Qlik dashboard to it. So don't clutter it too much. Just show them something very static and very quickly, and so they can get going with that. And that just gives them a little bit of trend on. So I've only, as a beer, I've only played 2 games. You can see my trend. You can see the top 10 league table, and you can see your highest score. And essentially, the game itself is quite easy to play. It is Space Invaders, and you can play till your heart desires. Really, simple as that. It's a quite simple project. In terms of Qlik Sense wise, so that's the dashboard that we took to the school. Obviously, people have been playing, and it's been used a lot more than we initially thought. So we'll just pick a few. Restrict the data set a bit more. And that way we can explain it to them, how to look at the top scores in the bar chart, how to look at this trend in terms of how to find out how many people scored lower than averages, how many people are scoring more than the average. Also start telling them to look at who played the most games. How can you tell who's playing the most games? And that's where conversation flows with it. And having those avatar and other elements allows them to be a bit more interactive as well, rather than just plain business dashboarding. Because we're looking from the kids' perspective, it needs to be fun. And that's one of the elements that I was focused at that time. And while I was at this, I thought, okay, let's tell a story with the dashboard rather than just showing them all of those different things. Let's build a story. And this is another extension that allows you to tell the story. So, for example, I would like to look at George. So you make some selection on George, and you look at his scoring trend, how he's done over time, and then you look at his score with time. So doesn't more he plays doesn't mean the higher he scores, the longer he plays. Essentially, yes. So there's a correlation with number. Longer you play, more likely the higher you will score, and also just give them the full data set. Okay, look, this is all the games that you've played, and this is what your data set looks like. This allowing them not just to look at the data and look at those charts and understanding it, as well as telling a story with the data set and allowing them to understand a bit more in detail. So I think that's what I had in mind, and it went down really well with the school kids. Probably the next step would be to do with more and wider school with everybody's help, and obviously have more conversation around that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very good, and lots of work involved, definitely. Lots of work, mashups, extensions, yeah. Well done to you in that case, especially to find the time to actually to do that.
A little sleepless night, that's what it is.
Yeah. No, but thank you. I want to thank you personally to accept to be in our first session. Like I said in the beginning, this was actually just a trial. Is our first to see how it goes, but definitely very good. The agenda and the topics that we discuss. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity and to be here with us in this conversation. And again, like time is actually precious to everyone. I would like just to ask if anyone has one last question to Kabir before we wrap up and close for today.
I don't really have a question. It's more of just a statement to Kabir saying, you're a true inspiration, I think, to all of us, especially the school kids and what you're doing. And I think it's definitely got me now thinking I need to sort of, focus a little bit more on data literacy and also focus more on my children and teaching them about data literacy, because I think you've made some really, really valid points and things that I'm going to definitely start thinking about. So thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. So thanks.
Yeah, no, I agree. And perhaps one day we can also help you moving forward with your project. to be honest. No, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me today. Really appreciate it, and thank you very much for your time. And
No,
in terms of
thank you.
and all the different things shown, they're all available on my site as well as on the branch. If there's anything that's not there, just give me a shout from my blog, and I'll publish them somewhere for you.
Again, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. So this was our first online session. We hope to host many more. And again, thank you, everyone, and I will speak and see you guys in a different day. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Take care, Kabir. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Bye.